All right, everybody, welcome to this special virtual bourbon event. We're going to be trying a flight tonight of Buzzard's Roost from our good friend Jason Brauner, owner of Bourbon's Bistro. We're going to get to that in just a second. First of all, my name is Steve Akeley. I own a company called the ABV Network. We do a lot of different bourbon media things. We're the largest bourbon media company in the world. Our focus is strictly on bourbon. So we do podcasts, books, blogs, movies, TV shows. You name it, if it involves media, if we're either doing it or we want to do it. So we're trying to get involved in everything that we can. So that's a little bit about us. I'm also joined today by my good friend, Mr. Jason Brauner. Jason, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing great, Steve. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for everybody for showing up.
Absolutely.
Should be fun.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about Buzzard's Roost in just a second. But before we get to that, I think it's important to talk about your bar. Bourbon's Bistro is such a historic place, and like I said, we've made this case that you belong in the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the first and foremost is the fact of Bourbon's Bistro. So tell us a little bit about your location, your business.
Well, we're located in the Clifton neighborhood, also the Crescent Hill neighborhood. They're right there together. Here in Louisville, we're about 3 miles from downtown. We decided to open up. It's been right at 15 years ago. So I always tell people we were doing bourbon before it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a big passion of mine, and I enjoyed cooking. And what better to put two Southern things together is, some Southern cooking and a good glass of bourbon. So that's what we did. And I'd been in the restaurant business for my whole life, and we decided to open up I did a pizza place before, but I decided to go more towards full service as far as steaks and as far as steak and seafood and what have you. But we were just following our dreams, and then that's what this is what happened, and lo and behold, people enjoyed it, which kind of surprised the heck out of me. So
yeah. And you had just a different take on a bar in general. You were laser focused. You wanted a bourbon bar, and not only that, you got creative in some of the things that you were doing, having things like events and dinners with master distillers or people from the industry. You started doing flights. You were doing barrel picks. You were pushing distilleries to sell you barrels. These are things that are commonplace now, and it's almost laughable to think about. Yeah, of course, if you're going to have a bourbon bar, you're going to do that. But when you're the first to do all these things, it just comes. You literally had to think of these things yourself. And how did you decide to kind of do all these unique things at Bourbon's Bistro?
Steve, it was just kind of an evolution. I mean, we wanted to do all things bourbon, everything we could get our hands on. So with talking to some of the representatives from the liquor companies, we found out that, sure, you can have dinner with Freddie No. So we wanted to showcase each distillery's bourbon. We weren't playing favorites to anybody. So what we would do is once a month, we would have a different distiller or a different person of interest from a different distillery. And back then, there were basically only 10 main distilleries.
Yeah.
So we would have something twice a year, but we would have Preston and Julian come in, and we could showcase our food. Our chef could showcase the food. So it was really a culmination of us showing off what we could do with the food, and then people coming in and learning about the bourbon of choice or the bourbon of that month, whether it be Jim Beam with Freddie No or Wild Turkey with Jimmy Russell, or like I said, Pappy. Those dinners always sold out pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it was good to meet those folks, and like I said, we had a chance to showcase our food, and then that's where we came up with the flights. Really, from those dinners, you would have a 3-course dinner with 4 or 5 courses of bourbon. We might do a cocktail with that brand. When you came in, you'd get a welcoming cocktail, and then you would do 3 or 4 3 or 4 bourbons, and we would try to pair one with each kind of. It really worked with desserts. I mean, a lot of lot of bourbons worked with some of the desserts we were using, and we used it a little bit here and there in our cooking, but it's just kind of to showcase what we were doing and that we were all about bourbon.
Hmm. Yeah, and you've got a place that is a hangout for people of bourbon. So it's always great to be in your place and someone like a Mike Veach shows up, or Max Shapiro, or Bernie Lubbers. These are the type of people that just come in there on the reg. I mean, that's just normal for Bourbon's Bistro to run into these type of people. So it's cool.
You got Fred. He's a star. He
Yeah.
comes in.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah. I mean, there's a lot of. I think that the time is right to revisit this whole dinner thing and maybe just do a legend series. I mean, you could literally have the biggest names in bourbon at these events, and man, I think you would kill it, man. I want to be there. I'll buy the first ticket. You start doing some great bourbon dinners with some of the people from your bourbon Rolodex. I'm in.
I'm sure that we've done 75 to 100 bourbon dinners over the years. Mm-hmm. And, we just kind of fell out of, fashion with us here. I mean, we were reaching about the same amount of people, and we just couldn't get to that next level. And I think once we laid off of it, a lot of other people started doing it, and then they kind of got popular again. So, yeah. We've always tried to, not necessarily reinvent ourselves, but we've tried to keep it fresh and keep the customer, involved and try to come up with some different things to where you can meet a distiller and sit down with them. So we've got some ideas for the future that might work.
Okay.
But I think instead of a bigger dinner type thing, we're going to do a little bit more intimate type settings where if I could get one of them here where we can sit down with 10 or 12 people, where it'd be just like really having a personal dinner with that person of interest, I think that'd really be cool.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the type of interaction you truly want. I mean, a big dinner is great, but yeah, you might get to say hello to the guest of honor, but something like that, you're just a whole dinner conversation, everything else. I don't even know if I have enough material for that. I would have to really rehearse a lot. So Buzzard's Roost, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Is it something that you've always dreamt about, owning your own whiskey company, or how does something like this come about? Are you just like, wow, I own a great bourbon bar. Why not sell something that I'm involved with? So tell us a little bit about the background of this, how you got to this point.
Well, I guess it's been a dream of mine to always have my own whiskey. Mm-hmm. But more so, the way we got started, we've been working on this for probably, I think it's going on 4 years now.
Okay.
But I think what I wanted more for me is moving forward in my career would be a distillery, or wanted to work at a distillery. So I talked to some people and they said this might be an idea that we could pursue. So the first couple of years we set out to fund a distillery, which is no small task. I think, we were looking for about $30 million. And after knocking on doors and I mean, we had a tight business plan and all this, and we just really found out that nobody's going to hand me $30 million.
Have you talked to Justine Mays yet?
I should get with her after this.
Yeah, she'd be a good one.
So, but a lot of the investors we had talked to gave us, all polite people politely saying no, but they gave us some hints of what we should do. A lot of them wanted a product to put in their hand, which, as long as I've been doing Bourbon's Bistro and the single barrels here, I didn't want to source bourbon. I wanted to make my own.
Right.
Well, so that became not really practical. So when we started looking to start a brand and to source, we were going to end up sourcing some juice. There is some bourbon on the market that a lot of people are sourcing, and we have access to all that. But I didn't really want to do that because it's expensive. It's really, really expensive, and I didn't want to come out on the market with a $150 bourbon. Mm-hmm. I just didn't want to do it. So then we started talking with Independent Stave about doing some secondary barreling. And what became of that is I was never a huge rye fan. I just didn't, I wouldn't, it's not like sitting around sipping on a bourbon. Sipping on a rye is just not the same. So what we did is we worked with Independent Stave to come up with some proprietary barrels that we developed. And for lack of a better term, the rye that we have is I call it kind of a bourbon drinker's rye.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we can get into the secondary barreling and all that at some point, but so that's where we were with the label. And now I think we shine because I wanted to turn a young rye into something that I would like to drink,
Mm-hmm.
which is me seemed impossible, especially our mash bill is 95% rye, 5% barley. So it's a very high rye.
Yeah.
We've got proofs up there. It's 105 proof and it's a 3-year-old. And I think it just doesn't drink like any of those things.
Yeah.
And that to me is, I think I've
Yeah.
started to, we're getting our feet wet, but I'm to do my job.
Yeah. Your mash bill is a traditional Pennsylvania rye mash bill, 95.5. I mean, that's, but those are known to be spicy. And then what you're producing is something that very different flavor profile than a traditional Pennsylvania rye. So,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's very cool. So in terms of the dream of opening a distillery, are you past that? You're just focusing on a sourced label now, or is there still some thoughts that, man, maybe I would like to get a distillery going?
Maybe if the stars fall in place that it happens, surely I would love that. I would definitely love to work towards that. I think the next kind of step in this whole phase of me making whiskey is we're talking with a contract distiller right now,
Mm-hmm.
and we are going to hopefully we're gonna contract our own bourbon. We're gonna make our own on a contract still. So
Yeah.
we're trying to get some still time, and hopefully my old buddy Jim will help me out with that, Jim Rutledge. So hopefully by this fall I'll be working with Jim Rutledge and distilling some stuff. So
That's cool.
just by chance, hopefully I'll learn some stuff from him, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Cooking in someone else's kitchen. That's the
We'll be working in somebody else's kitchen, but hopefully if things go right, we'll be working with Jim.
So you are good friends with Jim. Now he has also had a dream of opening a distillery and a big distillery like you were just talking, $30 million range. Have you guys, officially just kind of joined forces now? And if one of you would get the distillery deal, you would just work together, or is it still, you still have separate dreams? Now you're kind of working together because neither of you have put together the distillery deal yet.
Well, it was kind of the same dream at different, a lot of what we were doing was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if, especially if Jim Rutledge is, have trouble raising 30 million, I know that I would too. I mean, this guy's a legend.
Yeah.
So what he has talked about, he came out with Cream of Kentucky. I think he didn't want to, but he did. He wanted to make his own juice. And so what he's looking for some, from what I understand, he's looking for some still time as well. So I guess whoever gets to the still time first, I'm gonna call him, and I can't say, but hopefully he'll call me.
Right.
And he gets some still time. So we still talk and have lunch about, I had lunch with him over the summer, but he stays really busy. So, we still stay in contact. So hopefully we'll get together here in the future and start to make some good juice.
Was that the lunch where you ate the whole pizza and Jim only had one slice?
No, that was a couple of years ago.
Oh, okay. That was a classic Jason Brothers story. Business lunch. He eats almost a whole pizza. Yeah, not quite, but yeah.
The old hometown there in Bardstown.
So this what you're doing now is right. You will be doing bourbon as well, you say. So especially once you start distilling.
We're looking at sourcing some bourbon as well.
Okay.
I don't know how I feel about it. It's gonna have to be really the right thing for me, because I mean, we start by sourcing good juice to begin with. So it's just going to have to be the right thing, and we're going to have to price it out. And, I just don't want to come onto the market with a $150 bottle of bourbon. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
If we do get some bourbon, it'll be younger, because we're going to work it with our barrels. And that's what I'm looking. It'll be, if we do, unless we come across something great, we're gonna get some 4-year bourbon and age it in our proprietary barrels.
Okay.
And so, and we're gonna see how that works. The experiments that we've done, it should work out pretty well.
Yeah. Now, assuming that the distillery dream is not something that's going to happen, is the goal then to build Buzzard's Roost into a source, which you can do? I mean, you can make Buzzard's Roost a source brand that ends up being fairly big. Is your goal to get it, expand the distribution into multiple states? And how big would you want it to be? Would you ever want it to be across the U.S., or is it something you just want to kind of stay focused kind of in the area that you're at, maybe Kentucky and the surrounding states?
No, actually, we're already looking into, as far as cities go, moving into Chicago, because our distributor go there. And then I've talked to you about maybe coming to Missouri.
Yep. Yeah, I can help you in Missouri for sure.
Said something, maybe we'll talk about that at some point as well. So those are the two places that we have interest in right now. Eventually, we want to be across the country. And actually, one of the on our financial team, he lives in Europe. He lives in England. So we're looking to export into Europe probably sooner than most.
Yeah.
So just because we have that connection over there, and he's working it pretty hard. So yeah, we want to be a worldwide brand for sure.
Okay. And the noise that we hear behind Jason is good noise to hear, because they're putting back together Bourbon's Bistro. So they're getting ready to open back up. All the whiskey was pulled from behind the bar because there's some problems on Frankfurt Avenue with people breaking into establishments and stealing top shelf bourbon. So they took everything down, but put it back together, and you're getting ready to open up, right, buddy?
Yeah, we put it all on lockdown. I figured we didn't need to give another excuse to break the front windows out.
Yeah. So good. Well, I'm excited about
during the pandemic here. So
yeah. I know most the night that you open, you're probably going to see maybe some of the faces that are on tonight's event. I mean, there's a lot of people waiting to get back there, my friends. So it's really cool.
Yeah, we hope so.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? What's that?
Go ahead and tell us about that, the secondary barreling, and then you've got 3 iterations. Tell us a little bit, before we start even tasting them, tell us about all 3 of the offerings that you have in batch number 2.
So you want to hear about the secondary barreling first, or did you want to talk about these?
Talk about the secondary barreling, and then about the 3 that you've got. So.
Okay. So what we do is we've developed a couple of different barrels down at Independent Stave that are unique just to Buzzard's Roost. They're 53-gallon white oak barrels. They haven't had anything put in them, so it's not like an Angel's Envy. We're not doing that. These are brand new barrels. What we do is we do a heavy toast, and it's all timed out for what we're trying to get extractives from the barrels. That we have done chemical analysis on these barrels of what comes out of the wood at certain times, at certain temperatures, for however long we do it. So that's all proprietary. So we do a heavy toast and then a light char. We do a number 1 char because it's easier for the liquid to get through to that heavy toasted layer. It's a lot easier for it to get through a number 1 char than it is a number 4 char. So all of ours are heavy toasted and number 1 char.
Mm-hmm. So, and the 3 that we'll be tasting tonight that are part of batch 2.
You getting all that, Steve?
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me, buddy?
Okay. Well, what we're going to start out is our small batch, which is a very small batch. I can. Everybody okay? Everybody here okay? Very good? Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to start out with the small batch, which is a very small batch. Usually it's only 2 to 3 barrels. And like you said, we're upfront about what we get our whiskey from MGP in Indiana. We're having it shipped to the Neely Family Distillery in Sparta, Kentucky. And then we'll secondary age it in our barrels for about 2 to 3 months, depending on the time of year. So the small batch we're going to start out with is it's either 2 to 3 barrels that we've put in our proprietary barrels, and then we've merged them or blended them at Neely Family Distillery. So what I'd like you to do is I know there's not a whole lot here, but start out with maybe 1 or 2 small sips, get the nose of it, and we could talk about the sips of what we're tasting. But then I want to show you adding a little bit of just a drop of water, how it opens this one up like crazy. But I want you to sip it neat first. You know, there's still got that little bit of rye, earthy grassiness to it. But on the back end, that sweetness from almost like a bourbon comes out. Anybody getting that? And feel free to turn on your mics.
Jason,
Steve, what about
yeah,
you?
Jason, with me, I do get that sweetness and a bit of tobacco.
I know, like
Definitely a little tobacco for sure.
Yeah. Justine and I aren't local, so we have small batch from batch number 1, so we don't get the exact same experience you have. But I would say that what you've done in batch number 1, the small batch, is very similar too. You get that sweetness that you're talking about for sure. So that's good.
Right. So like I said, I would take a couple of sips of the small batch and really get the flavors of what you're tasting. And I love to swirl. I love to let the oxygen get to it, let it open up. And like I said, I'll take a little bit of a drop of water. And then swirl it for a minute and just see how much it changes. And you'd be completely surprised. I know I was the first time we did this.
The water really mellows it out. The water mellows it out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it? It almost turns it like to candy.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it gets really, really sweet on the front with just that little bit of water. Unreal.
Yeah.
And so I think the small batch is, you know, the proof's high enough and it's got enough bite to where you can layer some stuff on it and make a cocktail out of it if you want. But, you know, the purpose of us is making sipping whiskeys. I think that's the best thing for me is even, I mean, this gets really dangerous if you put it on ice.
And Jason, what's the retail of the small batch?
Hey, Jason, what did you say the proof was on this?
The proof.
I'm sorry, what was that, Neil?
He was looking for the proof.
The proof is 105. Yeah, the proof is 105.
Okay.
And that's going to be that's our small batch and single barrel are both 105.
Okay. And what's the retail price on the small batch?
The retail price on a small batch is right at $50.
$50. Okay.
So, I mean, it's kind of average. It's up there in price. And like I said, this is a 3-year product. I don't think it drinks like a 3-year by any means. I think it's a lot more elegant than that.
Jason, I think the small batch from batch 2 is a lot sweeter than the small batch from batch 1. I thought the small batch from batch 1 had a lot more smokiness to it. I think this is and they're both really good, but I think this one's a lot sweeter profile.
We do have taste profiles that we're somewhat trying to meet, but I think what we're getting at is all of our batches are going to be different. The one thing that they are going to be is good. They're just going to be a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we don't mind that. You know, we don't mind that at all.
Right. Any other comments on the small batch? All right, Jason, what's next?
All right, we're going to move to the single barrel, which should be number 2 in your cups there. This is going to be 105 proof as well. This was rebarreled in one of our, what we call a vanilla barrel. So it really should impart a little bit more vanilla than you're going to get from a rye. It's got that candy on the nose as well. And I hope you all have had a little bit of time to open up. Man, that's just... Any comments?
Jason, what's the experience for you as you drink?
I'm just a huge fan of the single barrel. Last year, our first, you know, it's hard for me to describe it. To me, it's just very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
It just, there's nothing off about it. It's just a really pleasant notes in there. There's all kinds of things going on. It's got a little spice up front. You know, it's got some toffee tones to it a little bit of toffee in it. But it also has, it's almost like green, hair of a little bit of a green apple to it in the back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to me, I don't know, like I said, it's just kind of pleasant across the board. You know, our first batch of, our first single barrel that we put out, we sent to San Francisco Spirits Competition, and we won a gold with it. So we were real happy about that. And I think there's over 3,000 spirits that get entered into that contest. And not everybody, they just don't hand them out. But
Right.
so we're real proud of that. We got a gold with our first single barrel.
Heck yeah. And the retail single barrel price is?
This is going to be right under 70.
Okay.
Right under 70.
Gotcha.
These bottles are usually pretty limited.
Mm-hmm.
We've done 2 single barrels for the. So there's 2 different ones floating out there. If you get another bottle and it tastes a little different, that was by design, because they were both so good, and we didn't want to mingle them and make it a small batch. So we put out 2 single barrels. So there's roughly about 500 bottles. Well, there was about 500 bottles of this single barrel floating around out there. So if you see one, pick one up when you can.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And did anybody put water in this? Once again, the water just kind of mellows it out a little bit. It actually gets a little spicy on the front part, the front of my palate, just a little bit. And it can eat a little bit more rye shines through this one, I think. Look, you're on, what was that?
Still very simple.
Water on both of them.
It's still very simple.
Yeah, the water on both of them really changes.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I think this single barrel has a little bit more of those rye tones to it. It maybe could have stayed another couple of weeks in the barrel, but I really like it.
Neither one of them have a young taste. That's what's incredible. For 3 years old, you know, that they just don't have a young taste. They have a mature taste to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Fred. That's one thing that was amazing to me. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, I mean, that's that proprietary, barrel that you're using has got to help with that, right? I mean, that's where you're getting those big boom of flavors that you don't normally expect from a younger whiskey. You're getting that from that the barrel that you got.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tremendous amount of difference from the product we started with. And, I think that, like I said, points that might not be so favorable, I consider selling points. Like, it is a 95.5, it is only 3 years old, and it's 105 proof.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it doesn't taste like any of that. And for me, that's what I love about selling it, and that's what I love about it being our whiskeys. It doesn't taste like any of those things I described.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments about that one?
Jason, I thought the single barrel kind of went the whole spectrum. I think it went the whole spectrum. I think there's some sweetness to it on the palate. I think you get some spiciness in there too, and then some smokiness from that barrel. It's a really complex whiskey, and I think you've hit a home run with it.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, do you want to
Your third offering. What do you
move
got?
to the next one, the last one? All right. This is the barrel strength. Once again, there's 2 different barrel strengths floating around out there. So we've got around 500 and something bottles of this. One is 113.4, which was what we have tonight. There is 114.2 floating around out there. So if you find it, pick it up, compare them. They're both stellar, but I've got a favorite, but we'll talk about that one day when we find both of them.
Okay. Oh, you're not going to tell that information now. Okay. All right.
So hopefully, now this really helps it to open up. I mean, this really, just because the proof is up there and it needs to open up a little bit. So I agitate it a little bit. This, to me, when I drink it neat, is about a 20 to a 25 minute drink, and I don't put water in it. So that whole time, it'll change over that whole period of time. And by the time it gets to 20 minutes, if you can let it last that long, it really opens up and gets a lot of candy tones to it. Ooh. Mm.
So is part of the fun, Jason, doing the evolution, taking sips along the way and just keeping it for a while? Is that part of what you enjoy, the different taste, or do you ever just open one up and kind of put it aside and go about your business and then come back where it's kind of got all the air to it?
Actually, for me, it's more like it's just like the whiskey goes on. I kind of hate to say that word, but it goes on a journey to where when you open it up, you're getting these different notes and flavors, and then as oxygen gets to it and as it opens up, it changes and it keeps changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's to me it's a constant evolution of it opening up, and I've found that with a lot of bourbons, a lot of whiskeys, that I love to sip it right off the bat and sip it for, I'll usually try to keep them around for 20 or 30 minutes. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's much different than what you started. Whether it's good or bad, which it's never really bad, but you just find different tones and different flavors from the beginning to the end. It becomes a whole different animal at the end of the day.
Right.
And that's what I think that's what I enjoy most about it, is that it's never the same drink twice.
Right.
It starts out a little more peppery maybe, and then eventually when the air gets to it, it gets a little more candy tones or whatever. But it's kind of the evolution of it. That's what I like best about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. Just joined us, I see, is Andrew Webrink, and obviously you guys are friends, and that's what's really cool. You've got this whiskey company now. You've got a friend that works for Independent Stave who runs the research center, and I know you work very closely with them because your barrels come from ISC. So, Andrew, I don't know if you want to turn on your camera, turn your mic on, and tell us a little bit about the barrel.
I'm not necessarily camera ready, so I'll just do the microphone.
Okay, but yeah, if you don't mind, tell us about the barrel, because I know you do a lot of different research and experiments, and I know you've enjoyed working with Jason because, aside from business, he's your friend as well. So this had to be a unique situation for you to do this. But tell us a little bit about what you came up with and how you came up with what you did.
No, it definitely is a unique situation, and it was definitely the most fun I've had, working to create, new products, which, essentially is, 75% of my job. The other 25% is, maybe not quite that heavy ratio, but, it's a decent balance, maybe a little favor towards product development over research. But for this one, it was interesting. Jason's had, a lot of years of experience, and it really does take that to kind of hone in a palate and, know what flavors are available.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of half the battle, is knowing which flavors are available. And then, he said, I've tasted this in whiskey. I know it's possible. Can you guys reverse engineer? What can you guys do to, essentially bring these flavors forward? And, part of the, challenge with this is working with a younger whiskey. So, we brought Jason into the research center. We gave him, obviously he's got a ton of knowledge already, but we kind of schooled him in flavor development and extraction kinetics, which I know, that's kind of a big word, but essentially extraction kinetics means what flavors come in when, right? Because there's a sequence to that. It's not just, random, certain flavors come in at certain times into the barrel. And that's just because of the way the compounds are situated in the stave. So, he kind of challenged us to say, okay, well, I really, really like these flavors. Let's design a barrel that, pushes them up front and works with this whiskey. So, we did some bottle soaks, his product. We tried out some different flavors, figured out which ones actually worked well with the whiskey. And then we said, hey, we've got, 5 or 6 different barrels here, maybe even 7. They all do different things. All were made to kind of your flavor specs. And, from that point on, it's his job to blend those. Right. Mm-hmm. So essentially what we gave him was a spice rack. All right. So he can essentially go and say, okay, this barrel does spice, this barrel does vanilla, this barrel does smoke, and he can kind of create different blends that way.
Wow. That sounds like a really cool process.
Did I lose you guys?
Yeah. No. You're good. Can you hear us, buddy?
No, it's a long process. It takes a little bit of time. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. You're good, man.
Well, we could hear him. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. Are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Well,
Yeah.
no,
Now
it
you're on.
was okay. No, it's a long, tedious process, but I mean, I think in Jason's case, we spent the time and it worked out great.
Yeah. Jason, from your perspective, what was it like going to the research center and doing all those things and kind of learning about that? Again, because if you're a whiskey fan, it doesn't mean that you know about, flavor kinetics and all the stuff Weebrink's just talking about. That's not part of the deal. You don't have to know anything about that to enjoy bourbon or whiskey. So tell us a little bit about what the experience was like to learn a little bit more about the science behind that stuff.
It was amazing. I was completely fascinated by it and wanted to learn more. You think you would get bored looking at bar graphs and extractives, what comes from here, and I was just completely fascinated by it and still am. So, I just can't get enough of it and want to do, more. I think Andrew's got a great job, Besides, if I ever got to be a distiller, I think that would kind of be the second job that I'd want to have. Own a producer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andrew Weebrink has been such a good friend of mine for such a long time. And,
yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, you forget how important he is in the business because he's doing, not only did he do the research with you for Buzzard's Roost, but he's doing it with a lot of other companies and things like that. They all have their unique needs, and he's got to work with them on all whatever they're looking for. What an important job. And yeah, so as you get into the Kentucky Bourbon Hall of Fame, which we're going to make happen, your buddy Weebrink will be there with you at some point. He's just got that type of job. We'll come see you guys.
Got a long way to go.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, well, you're a young guy too.
Cool thing. So, did anybody put any water in their barrel strength? Everybody put a little water in there. Taste the barrel strength.
All right, Jason.
Opens up beautifully. Like I said,
what do you get out of it, Jason Hunt?
For me, it made it a little sweeter, and it makes me think about growing back in El Paso, Texas. When we go visit family across the border, my mom would give me these candies. It's kind of like a praline almost, but they're the Mexican candies with pecans on it. So it's that caramely spiciness, the real nice pecan flavor for me. It was really nice. I like that single barrel.
Yeah.
The barrel strength, man, that you guys talked about it. It just kind of changed with every little sip, and I'm just sitting here kind of swirling it around. And it'd be nice. I think my wife would like that one as well. I need to go find me a bottle if I can.
Absolutely.
it almost has a creaminess to it. It's got this mouthfeel that really puts like you were talking about those pralines. It kind of puts this creaminess, this mouthfeel, and it's kind of viscous, is what I like to say.
What's the retail price of the barrel strength? We talked about the retail of the other ones.
Yeah, that one's going to be just right under 80.
80, okay. Where can folks pick these up at? Obviously, this is being recorded, so not only for the folks that are on tonight's session, but we'll make this available for anybody to watch. If someone wants to get a bottle of this, where can they pick up a bottle?
Well, the one major retailer that has it is Total Wine.
Okay.
And then, we're in the state of Kentucky, so there's a bunch of little local guys that's got it. And once this pandemic's over, we're going to really start hitting a lot more places. We want to do a lot of on premise as well. We want to be in the big hotels and some of the country clubs and whatever. But we're in a lot of independent liquor stores. Wine Rack's one of them, Old Town Liquors and Westport Wine and Whiskey. We're in those guys. If you're in Northern Kentucky, we're in that big one, Party Source, which has been a great customer of ours. But right now we're in Total Wine and we're working on some other bigger retailers. I think somebody said that we were in a couple of Kroger's as well.
Okay.
So that's pretty good.
Are you in Total Wine just in Louisville, or I know they have Lexington locations too. I know they got a couple in Lexington. Are you in those?
I'm pretty sure we're in their Lexington location as well.
That's good. Good.
That was before, before this thing hit. So once this is over, our second batch should be out there pretty easily to find. If not, you can contact me and we'll try to hook you up and get you a bottle somewhere or somehow. I do want to make an announcement before we wrap it up that, with the Derby moving this year, we've got another. So the first batch we started with just a small batch and single barrel. So when our second batch came out, we decided to do a barrel strength because we felt the whiskey was just too good not to. So right before Derby, we're going to be coming out with our toasted barrel.
Oh.
So it is a 95.5 rye. We can't, you can't call it a straight rye whiskey because it's going to be aged in just the secondary age is just toasted barrel. And wow,
Sign
what a really cool
Yeah.
product this
Yeah,
is.
I'm down.
And
For
we're
that.
excited about it.
Yeah.
There's only going to be maybe 200, a little under or right around 200 bottles of this.
Yeah. 199.
So it's kind of a limited release, and I think we're going to put it out right at under 80 again. So we're trying to keep the prices reasonable.
Yeah.
But the toasted is just phenomenal, and we're chomping at the bit to not put it on the market, but I guess it worked out because of the pandemic and whatever, but hopefully everything will be rolling at Derby and we'll have it out, and that'll be a fourth player in our lineup, which we're really excited about.
Yeah, that does sound exciting. So yeah, I'm in for that. I don't know if you want to, do a little pre-release to anybody in the bourbon media or anything like that. Just let me know if I can help out in any way. Anybody have any questions for Jason or even Andrew, if you want to talk about the science side and the barrel side? Obviously he was key in development of that, working with Jason. So questions for either one are okay.
Yeah, anybody really. If it weren't for Andrew, we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking. So
yeah, he's certainly had a important role in what you're doing. Okay, well,
and I think that definitely sets us apart.
Yeah. Well, it looks like no one has any questions or anything like that. So we appreciate people spending some time with us and learn a little bit more about Buzzard's Roost and everything that Jason's got going on and his work with Andrew Webrink over at ISC. Really cool stuff, and looking forward to the future. Sounds like you guys got some cool things in the works. I mean, a little note there about the toasted barrel. That's pretty. That's going to go in quick bourbon notes because this is kind of a small group here. I'm going to get this out to the masses. That's coming soon. So yeah, that's good stuff, my friend.
That'll be. It's good stuff. It really is. Like I said, I'm chomping at the bit just to get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds really good. So, well, everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Learning about it, going by Bourbon's Bistro, picking up some samples and trying it with Jason Brauner, Buzzard's Roost, and of course, Bourbon's Bistro. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you all.